So we're going to piggyback off the last lesson and talk about managing and keeping talent. I kind of went on some tangents about it and previously, but we're going to dive into it some more. Here's some key factors, just to build culture and support you, like keeping quality staff. Training and orientation. That's going to be very important. Like I said before, your staff is a representation of you. So if you don't train them right and you don't give them the proper tools to do their job, and tools could be, information. They don't have the proper tools, even the information with even the tools in the facility, be cleaning supplies, it can be med cards, it can be books, paper. You have to supply them with everything they need to be successful so you can be successful. You have to train, and then you have to train them how to use these things. So it's very important that you give them good orientation, great training in the beginning, and learn the culture. If you're new to this, you may not even know. This is why I say it's important to do consulting. So, it doesn't hurt to pay someone to kind of get these tips. And, I'm giving you what I know now, but your facility may be different. So it's always good if you have some other questions, even beyond what I'm telling you here. Always feel free to reach out to me or someone else to get some information. I'm dealing with this. My facility's here. What do I do? Everybody's situation is a little bit different. None of this is really cut and dry or cut and paste. You really can learn from other people that's in your same situation. But even if you learn from other people, your facility might be totally different. And you may have different factors that somebody else hasn't even been through. So it's always just good to learn as much as you can and then implement your own policies as you move on that you see makes your facility run better personally and for your own facility. So regular supervision and feedback, especially in the beginning when you start hiring staff. Show up, work beside them, take your notes. I kept a note in my phone where I was taking notes. Okay, like I saw so-and-so do this. I'm going to implement this next month in the staff meeting. Or you can say, oh, I noticed, the client has got up a little late. I'm going to implement that they have to start getting them up early. Always learn on the fly and just implement as you go along. And then before you know it, you'll have robust policies and procedures, and you'll just develop a good culture that's representation of you because it's what you want. It's your business. So then shift scheduling, implement shift scheduling, like I said before, where you have good 24/7 coverage, but your staff won't be burned out. Even if you have to have 2-3 people on a schedule at once, that's fine. Because if your staff is burned out, they're not going to be happy, and in turn, it's going to rub off on your clients, and you're just going to have an unhappy, miserable facility. Yeah, when you're looking at places like I told you to do, go look at some places. If when you're looking at opening a facility, look at some places. You'll walk in some facilities, and it'll just seem sad. You'll be like, wow, this place seemed like dismal. Then you'll walk in some places and the staff is upbeat, the clients are happy and laughing, and you're like, okay, this is more like it. So you can see it. You can definitely see it. And you want to make sure you're not one of those dismal facilities. You want to make sure your facility is one of the places that people walk in and they're like, oh, this is a great environment. I want to just sit here. And you'll notice too, because when you have these like third-party people that come to your facility, like the occupational therapist and the physical therapist, they'll sit in your place and just be talking to your staff and just kicking it around, and they'll feel like they're comfortable, like they're home. And I didn't know why. I used to think like, are these people miserable? Like, why are they just sitting around my facility just talking when they got like 3 other places to go to? And one day, the lady told me, she said, man, I go to like all these places a day and I work with these people, and I just can't wait to pack my stuff up and leave. She said, I come to your place, it feels like home, people are happy. I just kick my feet up and I just talk to your residents, talk to your staff. I'm sorry, I just waste all your time. I was like, oh, that's actually a compliment. People want to be in my place and actually like kick around like it's home. So that means my clients are happy and my employees are happy. Like, that's great. And those are the same people that end up sending you clients. Like, oh, go to his place. It's nice. If you can find an opening, because there's rarely any openings, but you'll end up with a waiting list. And you don't need a big, huge place for this. You just got to establish a culture. So, then it's your flexibility and contingency planning. Be prepared for staff absences and, maintaining a pool on staff calls. We talk about that. Like, always have people in the kitty. You'll thank me later for this, because you'll have people calling out, and people have lives. And in this industry, you're dealing with like nurses and CNAs and GNAs and people, they may find another job. They may have babies, and so things just happen, and you gotta be prepared on the fly to have people come in. People get sick. So, and in this age of COVID, you don't want somebody coming in and have the sniffles and they, get your whole facility sick. So you just stay home. Stay home. I got other people to come in. Don't worry about it. So you always want to have a backlog of staff and use some of these resources out here that, where you can keep, your kitty full with staff. And then, competitive compensation and benefits. You get what you pay for with anything. Very rare you're gonna pay chump change to someone and you get like a great employee. That ain't gonna happen. You find an employee that's good, you make sure they're compensated well, as much as you can pay them before you start losing money. But always make sure they're compensated fairly and well. And even if you pay them, right on par with the going rate for the position, make sure you give them like bonuses, like, stuff like that, like perks. I would do things like, if we had, for each month that we had full census, then they got a bonus. And it wasn't a lot, but there's an extra check. And I always cut my bonuses in a separate check. But that way, if we have a vacancy, they're going to be out trying to get the bids full because they don't want to miss out on that bonus. So they're like, oh, we need to, we had a client that had to go to nursing home or pass, like, I'm gonna go recruit another client for you. You'd be surprised how many of these CNAs and care providers, they know other people that are looking for places. So they'll bring you employees just because, A, they like to work there, and B, you offering them a bonus for every month you're full. Or you can do a quarter, like if we're full for a quarter, you get a nice size bonus. You get a bonus check. So there's different ways that you can offer incentives for keeping places, in order. And also, I would do bonuses every time we got a good inspection from the state. So when the state comes once or twice a year, they'll do their assessment. And if we don't have any write-ups, if we don't have any infractions, you get a bonus. So that means they're going out their way to make sure the books is together. And I'll make sure those bonuses were really nice, because that's our reputation with the state. So, that's very important to me. So I made it very important to them. So, they had some skin in the game. Like, oh, if this surveyor walks out of here and we don't have any infractions, then we get a nice bonus. So we better make sure these books are together. We got to make sure that everything's documented. We better make sure everything's where it needs to be, because we don't know when the state's going to come in. Because a lot of times they can just show up and do a pop-up inspection. So you make it worth their while. You say, hey, you pass an inspection. It's not passed, but if you go without any infractions, you get a bonus. So recognition and incentives. I would literally just talk about that. I'm always getting ahead of myself. But recommend recognition program to acknowledge and reward outstanding staff performances. So we literally just finished talking about that. Offer incentives or bonuses for hitting performances targets. So yeah, this is what I just said. I just got ahead of myself. And continuous training. Make sure you stay on top of your staff's training, because just because they come in and everything's together with their books and their certification, in this industry, you have to have things renewed. So you have to have certain licenses renewed. It can be every year, every 2 years. So you have to set a timer in your phone or a reminder on your calendar that this person's license runs out, this person's certificate runs out on 23rd of next year. And you need to be reminding them a month in advance that they need to take that continuing education class. Now, I used to pay for their continuing education classes, so that'd be one of the things that doesn't have to come out of your pocket. I paid for it. I used to, just do it. That's one of the things that I show them my appreciation. Like, hey, I'll cover it. As long as you work for me, I'll cover your continuing education. And they would love that. So you have to stay on top of that because that's one of the things you can get cited for. Clear communication channels. So that's always important between your employees and your manager and you. I always just say documentation. Like you have your conversation, even after you have a conversation with your staff, go document it, put it in a program. I use HoneyBook, and I document everything, and it's easily to print out. In every meeting we have, I document what we talk about. Even if it's a phone call, I document what we talked about, how we resolved it. I have them documented in the books because you can always go back and review that, and so can they. And then you implement changes if needed in the staffing and the care plans. If we need to alert whoever we need to alert staff members, we can say, hey, we call the person's mother. I mean, we call the person's next of kin. We call, the state and let them know what's going on. So it's just keeping everything documented. You cannot over document in this business because it's one of the things that's very important. You have to make sure you have communication channels between yourself, your employees, families, the state. It all has to be, clear and apparent that you're running your business above board, and you can't leave anything to the imagination. You can't leave anything to chance. You can't say, oh, I'm going to trust that this person's going to do it. No, they need to document that they're going to do it. They need to document that they did it. They need to document how many times they're going to do it in the future to make sure that this infraction doesn't happen again. And it has to be documented. Like, it just is what it is. So, and then delegate responsibilities and empowering staff to make decisions. So that's empowerment and autonomy. So you give staff, you have your meetings and you say, hey, how would you want this business? How would you want your work environment to be? And let them voice their opinions. And if it's something that you can manage and do and you agree with it, because a lot of times if they're not working there, they're the ones working on a daily basis there. So you let them, voice their opinions. If they want something set up a certain way, you take that in consideration and you say, you know what, we're going to start implementing that next week. Let's write that up in the policies, or let's start implementing that ASAP. That's a good idea. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, now we can start shifting. We can move rooms from this person, that person. You'll have clients that, are on the top floor and they should be switched to another room on the main level. And the staff will know. The staff are like, hey, Mr. So-and-so, he's been, kind of hard getting up and downstairs. I want to recommend it'll be easier on us to get him a first floor room. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now those first floor rooms cost a lot more money. So we'll reach out to his family and see, but if they're willing to pay it, then we say, we just do it. We go to the family and say, hey, we've noticed this, and are you willing to let him transfer to a room? It's going to be like $500 more, but we think it's for the best. And then if they say, no, we can't afford it, then you just document it. And at least you say, if there's an incident in the future, hey, we offered him the room downstairs and he didn't take it. We've been doing everything we can to keep him safe, but, this is what's happening. So documentation and, always take the input of your employees. You can't just make them feel like they don't have a say. It's, because they do, because they can quit and you can be left out, or they won't feel loyal, like they want to show you their loyalty and they'll leave at the first chance they get at another position. So you want to keep your employee, employee retention high.